very much indeed for the invitation. I've got 13 minutes to talk about 17 years, so I'm going to go as quickly as possible, and the clock starts now. This is my last public speaking engagement as a senior traffic commissioner and as a traffic commissioner, so I'm feeling a little bit demob happy. So I'm sort of wriggling around a bit with excitement, but with not as much happiness as all those operators I've dealt with over the years. So my presentation is called Heroes, Villains and Experts. It takes me back to 2000 when I was appointed as a rookie traffic commissioner wearing a very dodgy green trouser suit. We went on a media training course and we were told, and Quentin will know this, that the media sees people as either heroes, villains or experts. So which category do we all fall into? Well, let's look at the heroes first. Regrettably, I didn't make the dinner last night because I'd spent an interesting day putting my foot on the throat of a transport manager and operator, and I didn't take it off until 6:30. But I was delighted to see the awards being presented last night, and I know I'm not supposed to show favouritism, but well done to Chamberlain Transport from Crewe. So the heroes of the British transport industry are everybody who works in it. Whether you're delivering goods, whether you're delivering people, whether indeed you're delivering pineapples which will retail for £1, all over Great Britain and beyond. Shh, don't mention Brexit. We keep Britain moving, we literally keep Britain moving. So our objective as traffic commissioners, it's all about strategic objectives these days. You can't just go and shout at people, you have to actually say why you're doing it. But our objective is to deliver a much better service for the Great British Transport and Logistics industry as traffic commissioners than we've been able to in the past. When I started as a commissioner in 2000, it took 9 weeks to get a licence if you were compliant. Guess what? It still takes 9 weeks to get a licence if you're compliant. That's not progress. So what are the barriers to granting a licence so quickly? And I'm talking about the compliant. Well, the first barrier is the legislation. We have been asking the government for many a year to change the legislation. It was written mostly, as far as we're concerned, in the 80s and 90s. Well, you've only got to watch Life on Mars or Ashes to Ashes to see how much life has changed. So we want to bring it down to 3 or 4 weeks. Now, because I'm not a politician or a civil servant, I don't have to quite follow the rules on PERDA, and the civil servants in the room will be getting very nervous now. But I simply can pose a question, and the question is to government, as I step down from this role, is it appropriate to still have legislation that was devised in the 80s and 90s? Or should we modernise? I would hope that government will, and I know that it's working with my colleagues on the triennial review. But also, can I just talk about my mother for a minute? If any of you know her, please don't tell her that I smoke. It's a secret. She doesn't know. But what she did tell me when I was going off to school was, and then starting to buy things from the shops that were delivered by the Great British Transport industry, Beverley, darling, you get what you pay for. Pay a little bit more and the dress will last a little bit longer, or the shoes will last a little bit longer, or the hair dye, which I found, will last a little bit longer. And it's the same with any service. So you know in this room how much an operator's licence application is. It's about threepence halfpenny in old money. So it means that traffic commissioners have been for a number of years under-resourced. And we meet as commissioners with industry, and we know that you would happily pay a little bit more for a better service. So that's the second thing on my wish list as I step down. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is actually who are those heroes? They are everybody who plays their part. But does the British public regard the British transport logistics industry as heroes? Does it, heck? You ask them to portray an image of a driver, and they'll be of a certain hair profile, a certain tummy profile, chomping on a Yorkie bar. But the reality is so different, but we still have this very negative image. So, heroes of the transport industry and the logistics industry, as I step down and hand over the mantle, I absolutely salute you and everything that you do. 2 minutes on villains. I've had 17 years dealing with some villains. I seriously considered whether inviting some of them to my retirement party, as they have kept me going for many a long year, thinking they can slip under the wire without us noticing. But traffic commissioners are like the Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guards the gates of hell. You're not getting a license in my traffic area, or indeed anybody else's. Well, is that okay? Should I be like that, or should I be female, wear pink fluffy slippers and be kind to children and small animals? Sometimes, but not at work. Because the British public expect their regulators to be robust, and if we cannot be robust, who's going to be? So I make no apology to all those dodgy, difficult, nasty, dishonest operators that I've put out of business. It's great. But that's not just the job satisfaction. The job satisfaction is those operators who have had problems in their lives. We all have problems. We all wake up thinking, is it going to be, well, the girls wake up thinking, is it going to be a good hair day or a bad hair day? I woke up in the northwest this morning, in my own bed, by the way, and it was going to be a good hair day because the sun was shining, no frizzy hair. As I drove down the M6, oh dear, it's gone to frizz. But what about when you wake up and you know you're going to have a bad day? The mother-in-law is moving in. Even worse, she's moving out and it's just you and the wife. What are you going to do? You've got mental health problems, you've got mental health issues, you're worried, you're stressed, you've got to meet your deadlines. And that's when things start to go wrong because this industry is about people. So the best job satisfaction TCs get is from putting those operators who are having real trauma in their lives back on the road to compliance. And you know, I've actually had, it'll surprise you, a couple of thank you letters from a couple of operators who said, Tarbev, actually, you put me back on the road, and do you know what, my bottom line's increased? It's not difficult. So what we're doing in our strategic objectives, you'll notice I keep bringing it back to our strategic objectives, is we are asking DVSA and the traffic commissioners to work together to concentrate on the serially and seriously non-compliant. When I appeared before the Transport Select Committee and gave evidence, I spoke to them about DVSA targeting that soft underbelly of small operators who are easy to target. Most of them are fine. It's some of the larger organisations that don't get things right. And often it's down to the directors because they think, oh, it's fine, we'll not bother. So my message is, if there are any directors here, make sure you find out what's happening. So we look forward to working with DVSA as they start to target much more than they have in the past, the serially and seriously non-compliant. Some of you in this room will remember Sowerby Bridge, and probably all of you in this room will have heard of the Bath Tipper case. Horrendous cases, 20 years apart. I hope we never have another one of those. A moment for drivers. Issues they face, technology in vehicles. You've heard a lot and you will hear a lot and you'll deal with it in your workshops about technology in vehicles. Technology, as the previous speaker said, is there to help us, but sometimes actually it's a distraction. Now Quentin knows, because he referred to it 2 years ago, that I drive, I won't say what sort of person's car, but I drive a Land Rover. But today I'm in a hire car. And it's all singing, all dancing, and my phone's connected on Bluetooth, and then all of a sudden it pops up, text arrived, do you want to read it? Well, I'm driving, of course I don't want to read it. So how do commercial vehicle drivers deal with that? We have a government campaign that says, put your phone in your glove compartment or whatever compartment it is. But what happens when it actually comes up on the screen? So we must make sure that we use technology for our advantage. Oh, let's just go back to the 1990s. Do you remember no mobile phones, no smartphones, no iPads, no iPods? We rang each other on something that had got a cord on the end of it. We spoke to each other. Life was great. We managed. Now we have to tweet, whatever that is. We have to go on Facebook. We have to do Instagram. We have to take a picture of our food and send it to our friends. Goodness knows why. It's only liver and bacon. It's not that exciting. So how do we use technology to our advantage? And as I hand over to Richard Turfitt, my successor, I know that he will work with government to face those challenges of technology and maintaining road safety. But I also ask another question when I'm dealing with drivers. I ask this question to government. Is it appropriate in 2017 that the regulators of the commercial vehicle industry are not allowed to find out the previous convictions of drivers who carry passengers for a living? Discuss. One more issue, and then I promise I'll finish as quickly as I can. We've talked a lot about drivers, but we also want to be sure that there's a level playing field. And employing somebody is onerous. You confer rights on somebody. So I know that commissioners, enforcement agencies, trade associations will be looking closely to ensure that operators aren't getting round those onerous rights by pretending that drivers are self-employed when they're not. Jack, I hope you're in the room. And finally, experts. Well, who are the experts? Well, first of all, they're enforcement agencies like DVSA or VOSA or the Vehicle Inspectorate or the men from the Ministry. And I look forward to seeing how Richard Turfitt works with Gareth Llewellyn to target those seriously non-compliant. Trade associations and professional member organisations do a fantastic job, but please use their services. Don't just pay the membership renewal fee every year. Actually use their services, and you will find that you become automatically more compliant. And I can tell you it's a damn sight cheaper to pay the membership subs and to use the auditing services than it is to appear at a public inquiry. And finally, a little plea for traffic commissioners. I do ask you to regard us as experts. You may not like us at times, but I would suggest that we're a bit like Hovis. I think it's Hovis, as good for you today as it's always been. Is it Hovis? Somebody will tell me if I'm wrong. But you get the point. We have to be robust, as I say, because if we're not, who will be? We're not always popular. When I wrote my letter of resignation to the Secretary of State, he got 2 pages, by the way, and another thing. A bit like the divorce petition with my husband, paragraph 234, you thought I'd forgotten, but and another thing. I love him very much, ladies and gentlemen, I just don't want to be married to him. So when I wrote my resignation letter to the Secretary of State, I said in that letter, I didn't take this job to make friends. And indeed, actually, ladies, if I'd been a bloke traffic commissioner and I'd taken robust decisions, they would have said, go on, yes, off you go, fantastic, strong hero. But because I'm a woman, bossy cow, control freak, maybe we don't see female robust people in the same way we see male. Anyway, sorry, don't get me started. But I didn't take the job to make friends. But the best thing that's happened is I have made so many friends along the way. And that's why I'm delighted to be here today to thank you, because as Richard Turfitt takes over as Senior Traffic Commissioner and we welcome 2 new traffic commissioners, they will need your support, because they work for you, not just to put dodgy operators out of business, but to maintain road safety and fair competition. So finally, looking forward, what are the challenges that my colleagues will face as I sit drinking gin, eating chocolate, and watching an old black and white film on the television? I live for pleasure. The skills gap and the skills shortage, and that is certainly something that I look forward to working on as I step down from my role. Autonomous vehicles, platoons, scary. Making sure that we use technology for our benefit. Mental health is a massive issue. I don't have time to go there today, but I was delighted to attend a DFT-sponsored conference with not 1 but 2 ministers attending and the permanent secretary. Mental health is an increasing problem that we all need to take ownership of. I won't mention the word Brexit, but I will say maybe some of the legislation could maybe made a bit more simple and a bit more relevant to risk. If you're driving a milk tanker, then you're subject to the domestic hours. But if you're driving a diesel tanker, you're subject to the EU regs. Does a milk tanker driver get more tired than a diesel tanker driver? Discuss. So they're the sort of issues I think will be facing you as you continue as operators and as I sit, drink gin, eat chocolates and watch films. I have had a ball as a traffic commissioner. It's been great. I've had a slightly smaller ball as senior traffic commissioner because it's a great job, but it also has its frustrations. But I have been absolutely privileged and honoured to serve as a traffic commissioner since 2000. And I know, as I say, that you'll give my successors your full support. So a massive thank you to the industry. If you have enjoyed my presentation, I am Beverley Bell from the North West Traffic Area. If you haven't, then I am Sarah Bell from the South Eastern and Metropolitan Traffic Area. Thank you.
Fantastic speaker. If you had one piece of advice to operators as you stand down, what would it be?
Keep asking the questions and keep asking people to show you how they're doing their job properly.
I think there's a body of opinion out there that would like you to work in the private sector and help them make their operations safer and more compliant. Ladies and gentlemen, Beverley has been making our roads safer and more honest and transparent. Another round of applause, please, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.